Hi guys on YouTube channel. We love you, Siyabonga. We love you, Siyabonga. Thanks and we love you. Thank you one. And we love you so much. And we say we still aren't. We ended COVID-19. We love it, but we don't like COVID-19 or lockdown. We are both so and on this lockdown and this COVID-19.
Dumelang everybody, how are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Wait. Wait. I had a joke that I wanted to pull. For all those people that came for my bubble gum in my last review, cling cling. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Okay, guys, I'm joking. For all those people that came for my bubblegum chewing tendencies is in my last review, there you go. I will not be chewing bubblegum in this review. I hope that makes you sleep better at night. But Hasiko Lapo, welcome back to another day, another Dola. Welcome to... Oh, guys, why did I leave my windows open? Why did I leave my windows open? Oh, man. Anyway, Happy New Year. Thinking. So let's get into the video. So today we're going to be reviewing Siya Kolisi's Rise. Drum roll. Oh, guys, this thing is distracting me. Fuck me. Do you see what happens when you mess with me?
Oh no, you're not gonna tell me there's another one?
So today we are going to be reviewing Siya Kolisi's Rise. Where do I even begin? So this is a very long book, right? And it has taken me quite some time to get through it. I will admit I'm not done, and I don't think I'm going to be done anytime soon. But obviously, for the purpose of consistency and giving people what they need, I will record a part 1 now, and then I'll record a part 2. So there are certain opinions that I'm gonna hold that might be, change as the book progresses. So I need you guys to understand that the review is only half of the book, right? And then in part 2, I will continue and we'll see how it goes. So first of all, I just need to say that this was a very well-written book. And the reason I say this, or maybe the factor that contributed to it, it's an exceptionally written book, is because Siya utilized a ghostwriter. And the name of the ghostwriter is Boris Starling, right? I looked him up and he's been writing for quite some time. So Siya wrote, well, the book is about Siya's life, but it's written by a ghostwriter. So this was a really well-written book, and I struggled to get criticism, right? And I wasn't gonna criticize the book just for the sake of criticizing the book and, clickbait and being controversial. And I worried because I was very critical of Mbumi's book, and I didn't want to feed into the perception that I am more critical of women than I am of men. So if you do get a sense, I did, as I read the book, come across points of criticism or areas that warranted critique. And I was actually happy because I'm like, whew, at least I'm not just gonna come here and tell you guys how amazing the book is, right? So let us begin. As per usual, I'm going to be referring, so as I read the book, like I said in my previous review, I review the book on my Instagram as I'm reading the book, right? So I will be referring to those notes just to jog my memory and sort of like understand how the book made me feel at different points. Before I get technical, I must admit this was a very well-written book, but it was a difficult read for me because I'm not particularly interested in rugby as a sport. So I only found out that Kolisi wrote a book after they announced their divorce, and I will be honest and say the only reason why I read the book is I wanted clarity as clear to see. I wanted to understand what could have gone wrong. Like, what do you mean Sia Kolisi and Rachel Kolisi are getting a divorce? Like, what about us, guys? Like, if Sia Kolisi and Rachel Kolisi did not survive marriage, what about me and you? What about me and you? But you know what I realized? I realized that we put public relationships on a pedestal, right? And we tend to forget that these are people, these are people with their own personal traumas, with their own stories, and people that make mistakes. If you're on a public platform, you're not going to be public about your flaws or your weaknesses, and rightfully so, because there are people that are not rooting for you, So I understand it's not even a thing of people living double lives. It's just a thing of, like, for me, I am very active on social media, and when I'm happy, I'll post. But as soon as I'm catching smoke, I just go to my corner and I deal with whatever I have to deal, and then I come back, right? The point that we need to draw from these, is that nobody's perfect, and in as much as these people are on a public platform, they're still human at the end of the day, right? Alrighty. So this book is an amazing book if you have a daughter. Yes, if you have a daughter or a son that are very passionate about rugby, or you are passionate about rugby as a sport, it will be an amazing, like, Boris has an excellent way of narrating the story. I think the first chapter, he describes when South Africa won the first World Cup, and he does it in such great detail that it's almost as if you were there, So for me personally, I struggled. Okay, the beginning of the book was really great, but then as the book went on, I realized, oh my goodness, this is rugby, and I got bored, right? I need to make it clear that there's nothing negative that I can say about the author's writing, but because I'm not extremely interested, I had a rugby player phase, though, I need to say. I had a rugby player phase, but beyond that, I've never really been interested in rugby as a sport. So that is why the book was difficult for me to read. So if you're into sports, if you're into rugby, or if you have a son who wants to, become a professional rugby player, then this is the book that you want your son to read. So let us begin, guys. I do think there's gonna be a few parts for this book because it's very long, and I need you guys to be patient, like, with me. In as much as I want to be consistent, I also have a life. I had so much fun in December, guys. I was in Durban, living it up, and as passionate as I am about literature, like, I just wanted to be outside. Like, reading was the last thing on my mind. I did read here and there, but not as much as I actually do, right? So there will be gaps between the reviews, and I don't want to rush through a review. Like, I don't want to rush a book so that I can, and then next thing. Anyway, I'm rambling. So let us begin. The first, like, the opening line is, to my wife, Rachel, I dedicate this book to you. Without you, my story wouldn't be complete, because you helped and keep helping me to be the man that I'm striving to be every day. Your kindness, love, care, honesty, and support have helped me to push through everything life has thrown at me. Thank you for your unconditional love and for loving my perfect imperfections, right? So I don't know if this book was written before they were considering divorce, but the writer is very good at like getting you excited, because you're like, okay, this might just be a love letter to Rachel, you know, this might just be what the whole book is about. And as a hopeless romantic, I was very excited when I read the opening prologue, and I was like, listen, men are very underwhelming in real life. Like, I need to say, I read books as much as I read because I am a hopeless romantic to the core, and the only area or the only way I get to really, you know, get excited about love and romance and is through literature, it's through movies, it's through, you know. So I was very excited, but I found out as the book progressed that it's more about rugby than it is about his personal life. So that is my first area of criticism. I wish he could have delved a little bit deeper into his personal life. Like, there are plenty chapters on his personal life, but I feel like there's not a perfect balance between his story and his rugby career. And as somebody who is not particularly interested in the sport, I struggled to get through it. Not because it was not great. It has quotables for days, okay? Like, Kolisi is such, oh my goodness, he's such a man. Listen, if you're watching this, you are mara problematic, actually. Let me not lie. You are very problematic, but you are. And you know what I realized? There's a chapter, I think the last part that I read, he was basically speaking about his vows, and in his vows I realized how problematic this man is. And I realized even before they got married, Kolisi put Rachel through the ringer, okay? And I remember, I'm not very active on Twitter. I think Twitter is a very problematic platform. There's nothing positive that ever comes out of Twitter, so it's not my platform. But I remember there was a point where Rachel used to call out girls who would like throw themselves at Sia, and I now understand that it is because she was insecure, man. Like, Kolisi was problematic, you guys. Exceptional as he is, he's so humble. He is, oh my goodness, this book is really well written. He is still, you know, he still has his own traumas, and unfortunately those traumas make him a slightly problematic person. So, whew, guys, okay. Alrighty. Schoolboy, and he basically speaks about his time in Zweden before he got a bursary to go study at Grace. So he's basically detailing what life used to be for him prior to Grace, right? And yo guys, this is such an inspirational story because it was God, man. You know, like certain, like, oh my goodness, goosebumps. But his story is such an amazing story. And I'm just like, waiting that like, God is for us all, and God will take you only, and then he will, you know. So the first chapter, he details his upbringing. I have a quotable. He says, I played in purple boxer shorts as I didn't have a proper pair of shorts. Papama, Zolani, and Nick were in the A team, and I was in the B team, but I didn't care. I just wanted to play. It was a great day. The A team didn't fare so well, but we in the B team won all our matches. I did what I always did, ran hard at people, offered myself in support if someone else had the ball, and kept encouraging my teammates. I wasn't especially big or quick, but I worked my socks off and understood where on the pitch I needed to be at any given time to maximize my usefulness, right? So later in the book, he explains how he wasn't very big or athletic because obviously he comes from poverty, so there wasn't always enough food, and yo guys, he speaks about when he got to Grey and now there's abundance, right? And he used to eat so much, he used to eat so much, and people would judge him for it, but they didn't understand, yo, this person knows real hunger. You know, they didn't understand, like, this person is this excited about food because they know exactly how it feels to be hungry. What I didn't know until a few days later was that one of Nick's teachers at Grey Junior, Andrew Hayidakis, had been watching the matches with more than just an average spectator's passing interest. He had his eye on Papama, Zolani, and me, and had been in touch with Coach Eric before the tournament about the possibility of offering us bursaries to Grey Junior, not just to play rugby, although that was obviously a big part of it, but also to get the kind of education we could never have dreamed in Zwede, right? So basically there is the sponsor who watches rugby, and then he sort of like identifies learners that he can, you know, offer bursaries, like learners with potential. And Sia just so happened to be at the right time, at the right place, and he utilized that opportunity. And I appreciate that he wasn't in the A team, right? He was in the B team, but he wasn't concerned about, oh my goodness, I'm not in the A team, I'm gonna wallow in self-pity, da 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 da. He was like, I'm in the B team and I'm gonna show them, hore, I'm supposed to be in the A team, you know? And it just goes to show that, like, whatever opportunity that you have, you must always ensure that you utilize it to the best of your ability, because you never know who is watching. So he speaks about, like, obviously he used to play Go Zwede, and then I think he met another coach from a different school, and then this coach had this coach started mentoring him, and he saw his potential. And you know what, guys, love teachers that are passionate about education, because they're there to actually identify, okay, this is your weakness, this is your strength, okay, maybe we should just try and nurture this child because this is what they're good at, you know. What I have a problem with, like, and I think this is particularly important, that in schools there's sports, there's academics, there's, because people have different strengths. I can't do anything athletic, right? But I am very smart. And I know you're not supposed to say that, and I'm supposed to be humble, but I am very academic, and I got to excel in academia. What is frustrating is to see, like, a learner that is not academic being put or being forced to compete in an academic arena. And I just appreciate, like, teachers that are able to just identify, oh my goodness, this child is good at sports, and instead of making them feel, you know, worthless by forcing them to get distinctions, we are gonna support this, you know, talent, and make sure that the kid actually reaches their full potential. So the verdict on this one, like the verdict on this book on whether it was worth your money, came very early. Like, I think first chapter in, I was already like, oh my goodness, you should buy this book. And this is because the first chapter, guys, they are describing that game in 2019 where South Africa won the World Cup. Like, you can see, like, the beauty. So great opening chapter. Kolisi started in the B team, proved that greatness often begins in unexpected places. What a man. And then now, obviously, Andrew has, you know, identified these kids from, like, the hood, and he wants to sponsor them, and then now they have moved to Grey's Junior, right? So he says, I pretty much couldn't speak a word of English, and that put me very much on the back foot. It excluded me from all things every other people took for granted, like being able to read and listen to instructions, knowing what was going on in lessons, being part of conversations between mates. But it also made me feel stupid when I wasn't, right? And I understand, and I'm actually glad that he acknowledges that, you know what, I wasn't. So I like how he recognizes, I don't know if he recognized this at the time, whether, or he only recognized after the fact, but actually I'm not stupid, I just don't know, I'm just not fluent in English, right? But it also made me feel stupid when I wasn't. At Msengeni, I'd been one of the top or three in the class. I was scared to speak. I would say 1 or 2 words in English and complete a sentence in isiXhosa, right? So then on Instagram, I say my thoughts. I find it troubling how often we equate someone's intelligence with their proficiency in English. This bias is deeply influenced by financial privilege, as access to quality education often determines fluency. As a result, individuals who are less fluent in English are unfairly labeled as less intelligent, a stigma they may carry throughout their lives. And then when internalized, this perception can significantly impact their confidence and career trajectory. So it's unfortunate that we live in a society where for people to think, or for people to regard you as intelligent, you need to speak a certain way, right? And people that are really smart, I can imagine how many people are brilliant, but because they didn't have the financial privilege to go to all these amazing schools, they go through their whole lives thinking they're not smart enough. And how far you go in life has a lot to do with how much you believe in yourself, like how much confidence you have, right? But Kanye West, Elon Musk, all of those people are where they are because they are confident, like in a delusional way where you think you're the best thing to ever hit earth. And I think for you to be the best thing, for you to be the greatest of all, you need to think it has to start here. Like, so I don't know, man. I don't know if there's a society or there's anything that we can do about it to change that narrative. Stop judging people based on how they speak English. Like, it is primarily influenced by how much money your parents had, or if you had an opportunity to get a bursary to go to a good school. And that does not make you smarter than somebody who is not as fluent in English. And then now he's describing his first days at Gray's. He says, I would eat and eat. At meal times, I'd have finished my first helping by the time my mates were just sitting down, and I was going up for thirds by the time they cleared their plates. The staff had to slow me down and stop me from eating too much, but none of them really understood what an abundance of food felt like to someone who'd known proper hunger. So for them, they just thought, oh my goodness, this kid is being greedy, like, relax, why are you eating so much? But I think they failed, obviously, because of their own experiences, they failed to like realize, oh no, man, this person just knows hunger. This is why they appreciate food as much as they do, you know? So that was such a powerful statement. Really happy new year. Happy new year if I didn't say it. Guys, it was raining outside and now my makeup looks horrible. I'm so sorry because I know you're gonna hate me, but like, didn't have a choice. So I think Asia's mom passed away at a fairly young age. I stand to be corrected, like it's been a minute. And then the dad is a bit of a deadbeat, right? So you remember I spoke about the coach who identified his potential and placed him in situations or in places where he might get an opportunity to, you know, excel. So he speaks about him and he says he was the first positive male role model I'd ever had, someone with a good job, a sense of responsibility, and most of all a caring nature. So because the dad was never around and there were not a lot of positive role models, and like, oh my goodness, I think we undervalue the power of role models in our lives. Like just somebody to show you, listen, I come from a similar background that you do, but I chose better. And because I chose better, you can also choose better. So Coach Eric, if you're watching this, Lewena or Ncha ya game, okay? You are who you think you are for being such a positive, like for imparting such positivity on somebody else's. So then he's still speaking about his first few years at Grace Junior, and he says, I began to dream differently. I believed I could become anything in life because I had good teachers, good facilities around me, and people saying you can be whatever you want. I wanted to be a doctor all of a sudden, whereas in the township, you just wanted to do what the next guy was doing. And this confidence made me fearless. So when he said this, he reminded me of Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. And in his book, he says, you can only dream of what you can imagine. And based on where you come from, your imagination can be quite limited. So if Otokokasi, half of the time you can only dream of like being so there's a very limited things that you're exposed to, right? And it also feeds into what Kolisi is saying and what Trevor Noah is saying. Like your environment does play a huge role in your outlook on life and what you think is possible. So it was only after he moved from Zwede and he went to Grace that he started realizing, oh my goodness, like I can literally become anything I want, right? And oh my goodness, like I say on Instagram, this is what I'm talking about. This is the beauty of access, you know? And then I do say on my review on Instagram, this actually reminds me of something Trevor Noah said in his book, Born a Crime, but I'll keep it for the review. Born a Crime was also a great read. I probably read it in like 2019 going for 2020, I can't remember. The chapter Schoolboy, and then he speaks about meeting this guy, Nick Halton, on the bus, and then they got along from the start. So this is obviously they're moving from Zwede, going to play at another town, which ultimately led to him being, you know, being kind of, what's the word? Scouted. Is it scouted? Yeah. So he was at a school in PE called Grey Junior, but he wasn't at all snobbish or offhand. Before coming to South Africa, his grandparents had run a farm in Zimbabwe, and he'd spent a lot of time hanging out with the black kids whose parents worked on that farm. So he was pretty chilled about sitting with the three of us. In any case, he was in something of a minority himself, as there were only about 2 or 3 guys there with English as their first language. All the others were Afrikaners, and although there wasn't any sense of the Afrikaner kids being down on the English ones, at least not that I remember, I guess it was only natural that people instinctively stuck with those they knew and or spoke their language. So this is something that I have realized, even in like corporate, you know, there's always that thing where black people will gravitate towards the black people and the white people will gravitate towards the white people, and you know, we all just want to live in a world where people just all get along and we can all sit down and chat and but in reality there's literally nothing wrong with that. And I think sometimes black people internalize it a little bit too much. Like, you know, you will spend time with people that you can relate with, right? So the white kids will speak about shooting ranges and all of these fun hobbies, but when I, as a black person, if you are speaking about a gun, your perception or your relation to it is malume mamang alelekisa usunzwaki kasithunya guys, you know. So I guess like the ideal world would be a world where hahona that segregation, and sometimes it's not intentional because like people just go to what is familiar to them. And then he's basically at the rugby match where he got scouted, for lack of a better word, and he was just speaking about how like excited he was because he's seen so many facilities. Like he even spoke about there was a medical tent with bandages, dressing, and liniments, where else in Zwede first aid was cold water and a sponge. And if that didn't work, then tough, you know. So I think it's just him realizing, this side, you guys, it's nice. Where else goes really, you just had to rely on water and a sponge and moya or halalelang, if we're being completely honest. So he says a good job for kids from Msengeni was being a taxi driver, where else for grey boys the sky was the limit. You could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be a businessman, you could even be a Springbok. Whereas when he was still Kozwede, like he would have never have imagined one day I'll be the captain of, you know, one day I'll be the captain of the Springboks. Now explaining the transition from like a public township school to like a affluent private school, right? He says, most kids at Grays had no idea what it was like to live where I did and how I did. That's not a criticism. They've never been exposed to it. I didn't find it hard to deal with the fact that they were so ignorant of my life and the lives of millions like me. What I did find hard was how few of them were interested in rectifying that, in stepping out of their bubble and their comfort zone and seeing a different side to the country. So this is actually the first time that this is not actually about race. So I felt like this is also another criticism of the book. Sia was very, very, very diplomatic about race as a conversation, you know. He was a black person from a township who moved to like a affluent school with primarily white, which was dominated by like, you know, whiteness. So throughout the book, he doesn't really say anything about his experience, you know, outside of this part. And I was actually very impressed with when he said this in the book, but I got very underwhelmed as the book continued because I realized this man is not willing to speak about race and how that and his experience. He spoke about when he started dating Rachel and how a lot of people had opinions. A lot of people felt, you know, okay, Rachel is not supposed to be with like a black person and Sia is not supposed to be with like a white person. But he doesn't really say anything about his experience as a black person in predominantly white spaces. And I think that was very intentional. He was being diplomatic. And then this also supports my point that people that are young should not be writing bibliographies, because obviously he's the captain, you know, of the Springboks. He doesn't want to ruffle any feathers and he just wants to keep it, you know, as clean as possible. But I do think without being a politician, I think race is an important like conversation to have, you know. That is the only way we get to progress as a country, you know. For black people who are in white spaces to, you know, be open about their experiences without obviously being disrespectful or whatever. Just be open about my experience and like, okay, this is how I felt and this is how I feel like this should be rectified for the next black kid who enters into a white space. This also goes for white people who are in predominantly black spaces. They can also actively speak about how they felt and how they like problematic nuances about, you know, about the experience, because this is the only way Black people then get to know, or actually this is problematic and we should not, you know, perpetuate any behaviors that makes this person feel this way. So I think he holds a significantly senior position, and we respect him, you know. I think the book could have been utilized to address race as an issue, but he doesn't. He's very diplomatic throughout, up until the point that I'm at in the book. This was the first and only time he actually speaks about, and he's not even speaking about race here. I think it's more about class, and I think class is an easier conversation to have because you're not necessarily pointing fingers. You are just, do you get what I'm saying? So I think he missed a huge opportunity. Like, and I might be jumping the gun a bit here, because this is something that I said on Instagram later in the book, that I just felt like he slept on the job. He really, really did sleep on the job, and he was a little bit too diplomatic. And I would have appreciated just a bit more honesty about like your experience, you know. And I don't think it's always intentional. Sometimes people just don't know, you know. It's the not knowing that then makes them think it's okay to move like that. And he could have literally, guys, it's too good to be true, man. Like, he is, oh my goodness, it is too good to be true. Kolisi doesn't have anything negative to say about the Springboks, and rightfully so, because, you know, you can't shit where you eat. But I think, I don't know, I just feel like he missed out on an opportunity to educate people, you know, without being controversial. And I think he holds a relatively senior position he holds a senior position to allow him to do that in an educational way. Like, I'm not here for controversy, but I'm just like, let people learn, man, you know, be honest and vulnerable. And yeah, so as far as race goes, I do think that he was being extremely, extremely diplomatic, and he missed out on a great opportunity to, you know, educate people without necessarily being controversial. So there's nothing wrong, guys. Like, there's nothing wrong with admitting, Hore, if you are able to like penetrate those spaces, you're gonna value and protect them, because, you know, this is literally the difference between comfort and poverty, right? But I do think there are healthier ways of having conversations about race that does not necessarily, you know, I'm back to eating bubblegum. I'm sorry. Labona, guys, I'm open to criticism and I apply the criticism. There's a reason why I eat bubblegum because I do get like a bit anxious, and it's good just to calm me down, but I respect your guys' preference and I'm implementing it. Yeah. I was very proud. I'm like, oh my goodness. Kudos to you. Until I continued reading the book and I realized, for this man, because here he's talking more about class than he is about race. And I thought he was gonna speak a bit more about race, which he doesn't do. And I'm just like, alrighty. I really do think there is a place to have open and educational conversations about race without necessarily being controversial or being political or being affiliated with a certain political party that is very radical and very in your face. And they do it in a very controversial way that I don't necessarily support, because I think it does more harm than good. I am for discussions about race, but I'm for discussions about race that are fruitful, you know, for all different, you know, races. Right, so in the book he speaks about swimming, ne? He speaks about swimming, and then he says so he says, in my first year we did a PE exercise, and part of it involved jumping in the swimming pool, right? I'd never swum before, but really, how hard could it be? A stone wouldn't have sunk any quicker than I did. My friends fished me out, laughing as hard as I was coughing and spluttering. Obviously, this whole swimming thing wasn't as easy as it looked, but I also knew it couldn't get any worse. And 6 months later, I was playing for the water polo team. This says so much about him as a person, guys. And this was hilarious because a lot of black people don't know how to swim, right? And I laughed when I read this because I could actually envision it in my head. But my criticism with getting a ghostwriter is that I struggled to know who the funny person is, because obviously this book is written by Boris Starling. I struggled to know, okay, Mare, Sia, are you funny or is the ghostwriter funny, right? And I had a conversation with a partner at work. She also reads a lot, and she was telling me that she actually appreciates people that write their own books. Like, she does not endorse the concept of getting a ghostwriter. And she says when you get a ghostwriter, it's very well packaged, da 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 da. And I disagree with her because, for me personally, guys, I don't want to be suffering through your, bad use of words and because I want you to tell your own story. It's fine. If you can't write, there's nothing wrong with admitting that you can't write and getting somebody who can actually write to write for you. So I think that was also just I don't know, am I laughing at Sia? Is Sia funny or is Boris funny? So that was also just an area of criticism where I was just but I could say, guys, you know?